Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fro Wrestling Podcast. This is the video version. We are talking Monday Night Raw, and we are talking Superstar Shakeup coming out of what no one seemed to know what it was going in. And after last night, I don't even know how to explain my reaction. It's really crazy. So we have Raw come out. I'm not going to go over the results of Raw because if you're tuning into this podcast, if you're watching this video, you've already seen Raw. You're ready to watch SmackDown tonight. What I am going to talk about though is the Superstar Shakeup. I think going into this, everybody had the opinion this was going to go down a lot like the old drafts did a few years ago. And this had nothing to do with the draft. This had no excitement. There was no countdown to when they were making a pick. There was no shuffling of the little cards to see who was coming. Instead, we just had random people show up on the card and suddenly they're on Raw. And it left no intrigue. There was no trade. That was what we were led to believe, is these were going to be trades where you would see who was going for who and what value one person had versus another. And this left it very flat. I thought WWE really dropped the ball here. This was not their best production and clearly wasn't the most well thought out. Lots of rumors out there speculating that this was a last minute thing, that they hadn't booked far enough ahead for this, and the product really showed that last night. Very disappointing. However, that being said, let's go over one at a time the people who made the switch to Raw, starting with the people who kicked off the show. One of my biggest disappointments of the night, The Miz and Maurice. I was loving everything Miz and Maurice were doing over on SmackDown. I'm okay with them maintaining the John Cena and Nikki Bella parody characters as long as they're still on the blue brand. How are they supposed to further that whenever John Cena and Nikki Bella come back if they don't stay over on SmackDown when John Cena is still on SmackDown? Unless you pull something tonight where he goes to Raw tonight, but I don't see that happening either. So it didn't make any sense to further that storyline only to move them to Raw. And then when they get there, what are you going to do with them? Over on SmackDown, there was legitimate concern that there was people who felt like they were legitimately a world championship caliber act, that Miz could be world champion. He's not going to do that on SmackDown, or I'm sorry, on Raw. Who's he going to face on Raw? He's going to take the world championship from the Universal title. Are you going to really book The Miz to defeat Seth Rollins, or maybe Braun Strowman, or Brock Lesnar? Who is The Miz going to beat in the world championship picture over on Raw? On SmackDown, you could see him beating an AJ Styles or a Randy Orton, since he already has. You can't see him beating the talent on Raw. I'm not saying the Raw talent is better. I'm saying the size, the makeup of the roster doesn't make sense for Miz to ever get a world championship opportunity as long as he's on Raw with its roster the way it is currently. You would have to move a whole lot of people to SmackDown to make this even begin to get close to working. I think this was a really big mistake, taking him off the blue brand. Same thing with Maurice. Maurice doesn't do anything but walk him to the ring. I think this was an opportunity to split the two of them up and put her back in the ring, unless that's not her ambition. If she's not looking to go back into the ring at all, then why is she even on television? She's just eye candy for The Miz? Whatever. If she could tour towns with her husband without having to be an on-screen talent, you could save a few bucks in payroll. At the end of the day, if she's not doing something of more substance, I don't really see the purpose to her anymore. The old-fashioned approach to managers and valets is kind of dead, except for Maurice. So I guess that's their only motivation to keep them together, is she plays the classic valet role. But I would have much preferred they stayed on SmackDown. Moving on, you had Dean Ambrose come out, and I'm sorry, I said this in a previous podcast. I don't know if Dean Ambrose even has a role anymore. He's not a main eventer, but he's not a mid-carder. He's somewhere in between. He's something where you can realistically expect him to defeat some of the top talents in the company, but at the same time, you can expect him to beat certain other top talents in the company. You're never going to expect to see Dean Ambrose beat Brock Lesnar. It's not going to happen. Brock Lesnar absolutely dismantled him at WrestleMania last year. So, again, Dean Ambrose going to Raw, yes, you can put him in a match with Seth Rollins. You could put him in matches with people like Kevin Owens. You could put him in with Finn Balor. So, yes, he does have some main event appeal as far as storyline is concerned, but not as Universal Champion is concerned. So, for Dean Ambrose, I feel like it's somewhat of a step down. On SmackDown, you could at least buy him defeating anyone who had the championship on that brand because of the way he's performed over the last year. And in all honesty, I feel like he kind of earned more respect than what he has gotten recently. I'm going to talk about some of the other ones. I'm going to go person to person just so we make sure we tackle them all. Apollo Crews, I'm okay with Apollo Crews moving because his character needs to be freshened up more probably than anybody. Apollo Crews came out of the independent scene. He was Ooh Nation. He had such a huge following on the independents. Guys at WWE, NXT, he was tearing it up for a while. Then he gets to the main roster and they've done nothing of substance with him. He's been wasted for a year. So I feel like his whole career took a back step, Now maybe you could repackage him. I don't want to say repackage him because Apollo Crews is Apollo Crews, but give him something of substance to do. He should never have been losing matches to Dolph Ziggler. I'm sorry. Dolph Ziggler is not Dolph Ziggler 5 years ago. For the fans who want to see Dolph Ziggler be world champion, hopefully that will never happen again. Dolph Ziggler's character has been dismantled enough that he doesn't deserve to be world champion anymore. Apollo Crews is a young guy. You could still build him for the foreseeable future and make him into a solid quality prospect. I wish they would have had that foresight in SmackDown. Hopefully now they will on Raw. Kalisto's like one of my favorite moves. I think Kalisto needed to be on Raw. He needs to be in the 205 Live Cruiserweight division. He needs to give a real legitimate threat and challenge to people like Neville, Austin Aries, now TJ Perkins after his turn last night. So Kalisto actually makes the most sense, and I hope he really bolsters that division. Remember, this is the guy who beat Ryback at WrestleMania last year, so he has some credibility to his ability, former United States champion and whatnot. So I'm okay with Kalisto. Kurt Hawkins, why does he even have a job? I'm not trying to take away somebody's job. I don't feel good for anybody who loses their employment or can't put food on the table for their family. But why is he on the roster? Like, why is he on the main roster? Move him down to NXT where you can do something. Drew Galloway's on NXT. Drew Galloway used to be a jobber on the main roster. You put him on NXT and suddenly he's a star. Put Kurt Hawkins there. Let him do something that means something to somebody. Because right now, walking out and congratulating yourself for being moved to Raw and then getting punched by the Big Show, that does nothing for me. It's like a wasted announcement, you know? So I just wish they would do something with the guy. And if not, then just get rid of him, okay? I love his character. Don't get me wrong. I actually like him. I think he's much more talented than they let him look. But you're not doing anything with him. You're wasting him. Put him on NXT. Let him do something, build a character, and then bring him back when the fans are truly behind him. Because right now, they're not. I know people want me to get to the real big one, the one that really rubs me the wrong way. I'll get to that last. I'm going to start next with Heath Slater and Rhino, a tag team that should have been broken up a month or two ago. Somehow they're still toiling around the roster. Somehow I expect that they're going to fill the void that the Shining Stars are going to leave when they go to SmackDown tonight. That's my prediction for the Shining Stars. They'll move over to SmackDown along with the New Day, and Raw's going to need some tag teams to bolster that division a little bit. But the Rhino and Heath Slater thing, it's run its course. I was ready to move on from that. You know, I actually like Heath Slater a lot. I would love to see him pushed. I mean, really pushed, legitimate star pushed. And he can't do that as long as he's a tag team partner of Rhino. I know he's probably loving his life in the wrestling world. I'm sure he probably loves the money he's making and everything else. But I would like to see the guy do something of value. I think he has a lot to offer, and he's not being able to do that right now. The movement of Alexa Bliss to Raw, we called that ahead of time. We knew she was going to be going there. She's a perfect fit there. She's the extremely over heel persona. She is Charlotte, but smaller. And I think that's part of why I think Charlotte tonight will go over to SmackDown. Charlotte needs to add legitimacy, a former multiple-time women's champion on Raw, go over to SmackDown and really provide a challenger for Naomi. Whereas Alexa Bliss, yes, she's held the title twice, but that was more out of necessity than warrant. But now she's going someplace where her body size and ring style are going to really complement all the girls on the roster except for Nia Jax, which I'm okay having this bulldozer run through the division. She needs to get the championship at some point, and then she's going to lose it to Asuka. I'm just saying. It's my prediction. It's the way I feel. I am thrilled that we got to see Charlotte and Nia in the ring before Charlotte makes the move, even though Charlotte took some insane bumps in that match, falling on her head, doing the moonsault off the turnbuckle that Nia pretty much dropped her on her face, and then she dropped her on her face another time in the match too. Good thing Charlotte's even okay today, but I'm okay with the switch. The Mickie James thing, I couldn't care less about, because, and this is not because I don't like Mickie James. I think Mickie James is one of the best female talents in the history of pro wrestling. I mean that when I say that. But I didn't care which brand she debuted on to begin with, and they've done nothing with her since she went to SmackDown. Nothing really important. She had one moment where she did that spin wheel kick to the back of Alexa Bliss's head before WrestleMania, where I thought, oh my gosh, they might actually give her something important to do, and then they squandered that too. So I don't care. Let her be on Raw. Let her be on SmackDown. They're all fresh matches for her because she's been gone so long. This will be kind of cool to see her in the ring with people like Bayley or Sasha or Nia Jax or whoever they want to put her in. I actually would buy Mickie James versus Nia Jax. I think that actually is a really good match. I hope we see that at some point. And her and Emma could have some really funky playoff feud storyline kind of thing going on too. So who knows? There's potential there for the future. There was a switch on the announcer's table. Byron Saxton's going to SmackDown. I'm sure he's thrilled about that. What I hope he understands is he's quickly becoming a stud announcer, and he could have a really serious role on SmackDown for the foreseeable future. So a lot of people are upset about Byron Saxton leaving. I'm happy for his career because I think he really has a lot to offer. And then David Otunga going to Raw, it really doesn't matter. David Otunga is a brilliant young man. If he's not going to be an in-ring talent, let him be a broadcaster. You have a relatively strong announce team on Raw, so he could fit into there and he could hone his craft a little better and get better at being an actual broadcaster. And hopefully, it'll pay off in the long run. I think with Corey Graves being there and just the way they do what they do, I think he'll be okay. And I think that Byron Saxton was kind of overkill on the Raw roster. So him moving to SmackDown, probably a good deal, especially if they lose a certain somebody who we're not going to say was a bully, but is a bully. So moving on to the one that everybody wants to talk about, the big move of the night, Bray Wyatt. I am so happy and mad all at the same time about this. Bray Wyatt has fought for years now to get to the position where he's a legitimate world champion contender. Now, I'm not saying he can't be on Raw, but my fear is this. They're going to put him into his first feud with Finn Balor. Now, what do? Are you going to bury Finn Balor after he just came back and have him lose to Bray Wyatt? Probably not. Are you going to bury Bray Wyatt, who just finally got his world championship, only to have it taken away a month and a half later because Randy Orton, for some reason, deserved a 12th championship run? It's ridiculous. Bray Wyatt should have stayed on SmackDown and won the world championship another time or two. Since that's not the case, now you brought him and put him into a feud that doesn't make any sense. Now, the booking does. I mean, just think about the marquee, the Demon King versus the Eater of Worlds. Like, that's got, like, fantasy wrestling booking written all over it. But at the same time, what are you going to do? Like, this Raw roster is ridiculous at the top of the card. You got to put Bray against Brock. I'd love that, but that doesn't seem like you're going to go that route. You could Bray against Braun. I'm okay with that too, but I don't see them doing that. You're going to put Bray against Roman Reigns. We saw that about 400 times. Same thing with Dean Ambrose, etc., etc. So I'm confused with the booking of Bray Wyatt by having him go to Raw. I would have liked for him to stay on SmackDown. Interesting to see that AJ Styles did not make the move to Raw yet. I'm curious to see if he goes tonight. I'm hoping he doesn't. There's a chance that the club will end up on SmackDown tonight. I'm okay with that too if that happens, but I'm not absolutely certain that's going to happen either. So we'll have to see. But coming out of night one, somewhat underwhelming as far as the surprises are concerned, and really shocking that we didn't see more bigger names moved. A lot of just fiddle-faddle and last-minute thrown-together booking. So hopefully WWE gets it straight. Hopefully coming out of SmackDown tonight, we get to get some clarity as to what the long-term plan is. Where are we going with all this? Down the road, like with Brock and Roman Reigns? How are we going to get there? And are there going to be great feuds for these new talents once they get to their new show? Keep your eyes out tonight. I'll be back on hopefully tomorrow with another episode responding to the SmackDown changes. Until then, everybody take care. Thank you so much for tuning into the podcast. Please click that subscribe button. Click the thumbs up. Give us a like. We are shooting for our first 100 subscribers on YouTube. Every one of you helps every time you do that for me. I can't tell you how much it means to get so much support from all over the world. Thank you to all our loyal subscribers. You guys are awesome. And I will see you